Shalom, friends. I'd like to welcome you to this special program. As a watchman on the wall looking for the end time events, we wanted to send this message out to you at this time frame. It is now February of 2013. We're in the winter of 2013. For those of you who have followed my teaching and the teaching of many others looking at the end times, this is potentially a very, very special time. We see many signs that are coming together about the end of the age and specifically about the events of the beginning of the Great Tribulation that seem to point to this winter as potentially the start. The key, of course, to that is, will the specific prophesied signs occur? I want to remind you of what Yeshua said to the disciples would be the key signs that we're to watch for. They include the abomination of desolation, which is two parts. One, an altar on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem that is suddenly shut down, and also the image is set up and the anti-Messiah comes to power. Now, as we speak at this moment, there is no altar on the Temple Mount. The question is whether or not in this time frame an altar will suddenly be set up and then just as suddenly shut down that will perform that sign. If that be so, that would be the sign that would indicate that this winter and this month is the beginning of the Great Tribulation. And it would start what is the prophetic day counts. The prophecy says that the Great Tribulation will be a period of 1,290 days, beginning with the shutdown of the altar. But then Daniel goes on to say in chapter 12, "Blessed is he who sees the 1,335th day." That dimension is 45 days longer than 1,290 days. We believe, because of the prophetic themes, that the blessed day is referring to the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles in some future year, which Zechariah says will be the first celebration that we'll have with the Messiah in the kingdom. The first day of the Feast of Tabernacles is a known specific date that occurs every year. It's 15 Tishri, which corresponds primarily in the October time frame in our Gregorian calendar. If this winter is the beginning of the Great Tribulation and it starts that count, then it would be 1,335 days prior to the Feast of Tabernacles beginning in 2016. That brings us back to, if we count the days back, that the date of February 20th of this month could be the possible date. Now, as I said, we're here in early February. If there's going to be an altar set up and shut down between now and February 20th, it's something that's going to happen suddenly and very quickly. Is that possible? Yes, it's possible. Is it probable? Well, that's anyone's judgment at this point. We're watching the events in Israel to see if that will happen. We do see that the altar materials have been assembled. We do see the Jews who are saying they want to rebuild it. But the government of Israel, of course, and that landscape on the Temple Mount is the determining factor. We continue to watch. So let's speak precisely in our preparations for what is in front of us. If the altar is in fact shut down, then there are four things that we want to encourage you to do. One, you need to prepare your sukkah. And for those of you who understand what I'm talking about, you know exactly what this is. For those of you who don't, you need to look at one of the articles I've written in Yavo, which is about how to prepare your sukkah. That would be your tent. That would be your temporary dwelling place so that you can escape with your family. Number two, you should continue to watch for the image set up. There are two events in the abomination of desolation. We need both to establish that it is the fulfillment. By the evidence of two or three, you establish the truth. And the Messiah gave us, and Daniel the prophet gave us two specific things to look for to determine that abomination of desolation prophecy. Number three, you're going to want to keep Passover this springtime for certain. It comes in late March. And then during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is the 7 days following the Passover Seder, you're going to want to load up your sukkah and escape to the camp. What camp are we referring to? the camp of the righteous, where you kept Sukkot before, where you've kept the Feast of Tabernacles. If you're wondering where that would be in anticipation, you need to find your like-minded brethren, those who keep the commandments of the Lord, keep the festivals of the Lord. Ask them where they keep their Feast of Tabernacles and go to that location. For those of you who have been part of this ministry and come to the Feast of Tabernacles, we'll expect you at the Feast of Tabernacles there, where we have kept it in the past. Now, let me also caution you. Do not come before the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and do not come after the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Those 7 days, when we call eating the bread of haste, those are the days that you must escape. Do not let anything deter you, either before or after, from keeping that appointment. This is a case of where Yeshua reminded you at this time, remember Lot's wife, about a certain escape that had to be done precisely as the Lord said. And this is what we would encourage you to do. All right, now that's if the altar, in fact, is set up and then shut down that we see here this month. But let's say that the altar doesn't happen. Let's say that it's another time and we're still looking for it. So if the altar is not shut down this month, what are we going to do? Number one, we're going to continue to believe the Lord's promise that He will return. You're not going to lose faith or lose heart. Number two, do not become discouraged. The great exhortation that is found throughout the Scriptures is to wait on the Lord. The Lord has promised He will return. He has His perfect time to do it. All we've been doing is being watchmen on the wall, and as we get closer and closer, we're anticipating His return. Is there anything wrong with this anticipating His return? On the contrary, there is nothing wrong with that. In fact, the Messiah spoke of a parable of a master going on a long journey and expected to come back. The wise and sensible servants were the one who were anticipating His return, waiting at the door, waiting at the gate. Other servants who were foolish were mocking the idea of the return of the master. They were in the house playing around. Now, the Lord said that when the master returns, what is He going to do with those two types of servants? The ones who are wise and sensible, who are anticipating His return, are to be rewarded. But those who are in the house mocking and playing around, they will be surely punished. I offered that parable to you as the final counsel from the Messiah as we watch and wait for the return of the Lord. And thank you for listening to this message. Shalom.